Let's the biggest story, honestly, that's happening today is the reality of the confirmation of the most unqualified uh, Secretary of Education that I think we have ever had in the United States, and that's the confirmation of Betsy DeVos, which occurred today. And it was a 51 to 50 vote, a split that Vice President Mike Pence had to come to the Senate and preside as the president of the Senate and cast his vote. There were two Republicans who voted against DeVos. That was Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Both of them said that they had been influenced not just by the complete incompetence of Betsy DeVos, but by their constituents and the pressure that they received from their constituents. Now, even though we did not have a victory here, it does show you the political power of pressure and the ability to change the position of congressmen and congresswomen by virtue of picking up the phone and calling your senators and calling your congressmen. No Democrats voted for Betsy DeVos, and because in many ways this was the only litmus test. Mind you, Cory Booker has served previously on a board with Betsy DeVos, and in many ways, some Democrats, particularly Cory Booker, represent an affront to public schools by virtue of their support, their unfeigned and unlimited support for charter schools and the voucher program and the ability to defund public schools by sending those funds to public charter schools. But they want to escalate this even more. When I say they, Republicans and particularly Betsy DeVos wants to escalate this even more. DeVos is a heavy supporter of the use of charter school funds and vouchers. DeVos, neither DeVos nor any of her children have ever attended a public school. She's never worked in a public school. She's never taken out a federal loan because of how wealthy her family was at the time, and currently is. She is the president of the president rather of the American Federation of Teachers said, quote, "It's telling that even when Trump had full control over the legislative and executive branches, he could only get DeVos confirmed by an unprecedented tie-breaking vote by his vice president." And, it is telling, but the reality of it is she's in there. The president of the American Federation of Teachers went on to say that's because DeVos shows an antipathy for public schools, a full-throated embrace of private for-profit alternatives, and a lack of basic understanding of what children need to succeed in school. And this is the biggest threat, is the fact that she is looking to, in a sense, privatize public education and to drain as much money as she can. I mean, even actually to segue, there's a representative who's actually now campaigning to do away with the entire Department of Education. So it's not just the privatization of education, but it's also this desire to leave students at the complete mercy of states without any federal oversight. And this is an example of what Republicans claim they want to support states' rights, but they only support states' rights to the extent that it supports their ideology. And I think this is clear as day with regard to everything that we're seeing from the Trump administration. And so here they're claiming states' rights in this attempt to not only and actually let me sidestep here. If you're going to destroy the Department of Education, if you're going to try to find a way of undermining its legitimacy and its usefulness, someone as incompetent and malicious towards public education like Betsy DeVos is the perfect person to put in charge of it. And this is where I think they're ultimately trying to go. They're trying to undermine the legitimacy and the usefulness. And so they put someone there who is going to be perfect for gutting the current infrastructure, gutting the current successful programs, and completely putting it in a position to where it is irrelevant to public life. And let me be honest with you, we're at the point where we are going to have to rebuild a lot of America as soon as we get rid of Donald Trump and get rid of this conservative movement, right? And I have to always draw that distinction. It's not just Trump. It's this entire conservative movement, which intersects, yes, it intersects with some neoliberal Democrats, particularly on this education issue. But we're getting to a place where they are actively trying to destroy key components of the federal government, which provide protections for the average citizen and would leave us completely exposed to the desires of private organizations who are driven by profit only, even at the expense of the individual. And I think that's clear as day. So we're going to have to rebuild. I mean, their next target is the EPA. They're literally trying to find a way to destroy and not only defund, but completely dissolve rather the Environmental Protection Agency. So if you're curious as to how and why Republicans would overwhelmingly confirm someone so incompetent, someone so hostile to the to public education, you have to consider the amount of money that she as an individual and her family has donated to Republican senators. If you could go down the line, Marco Rubio, $98,300 from the DeVos family. Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, $70,000. Thomas Tillis of North Carolina, $70,000. Pat Toomey, $60,000. Rob Portman, $51,000. John McCain, $50,000. I mean, every person who voted for her has received tens of thousands of dollars, almost $100,000 for Marco Rubio of Florida, from the DeVos family. So what do you expect? She is the best Republican Secretary of Education that money can buy.